Sup YouTube, it's TCG here and welcome back to another TCG video on my channel. On this channel you get daily Pokemon TCG content, so be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Today we're actually going to be checking out a tier list, especially for Dortmund Regionals, which happens this weekend. I'm actually going to be leaving after this video, so it's going to be fantastic to go all the way to Germany to play in the first Regionals in Europe. So yeah, the new season has started. I already collected a couple of points through locals, so we'll see if we will actually get that top 125 eventually to get the world invite to California. So it's gonna be nice visiting there. I have never been to California before, so also if you guys at any given point in the video enjoy the content, let me know by rocking the hell out of the like button. Helps out in many ways for the YouTube algorithm, and I'm super grateful if you would do so. It only requires one tiny second of your time. With that being said, I have tested a ton in this format here with Stellar Crown, and it's going to be the first tournament in the Stellar Crown meta. So yeah, you're gonna have to pay attention to this regionals, because it's gonna be going all the way from that regionals all the way to the other regionals. There's gonna be like a ton of regionals in this format, and this is gonna be the first one kicking it off. So let's just dive into it, shall we? These are actually only the lists, only the decks that are showcased here are the decks that have been currently doing well in Japan and in the online scene. All the other roguish archetypes are not included in this tier list. If you want the full tier list on any new deck or rogue decks, you can check out the other tier list that I made, I think, a month ago. With that being said, let's dive into it. And I'm gonna be talking about, I wasn't gonna say like Charizard Pidgeot. I'm still a believer of Charizard Pidgeot. I'll be putting that in tier S. I have tested a lot of Charizard Pidgeot, and the cool thing is that we now gain the card Briar. This means that Charizard can actually fall behind a little bit more than it used to be, because in the late game you can knock out a 2-prizer for 3 prizes if the opponent is at exactly 2 prizes, which he can force through the means of Dusknoir. So that's why I personally believe that this is going to be a tier S deck, and it's also going to be one of the more popular decks out there. For me personally, Raging Bolt, I'll also put that in the tier S category. Not only did it win the Japan Champions League over in Tokyo, it is a very solid archetype because it also gains Briar for the 1-prize matchups. Think about Ancient Box and Gardevoir, which typically Raging Bolt struggled against. Now you can just do your thing and wait until the opponent goes to 2 prizes, which they eventually will do. Otherwise, they're not going for the 2-2-2 prize trade, which is also good in your favor in that regard. So yeah, I think the deck is good. You, of course, have the consistency with Squawkabilly, Radiant Greninja, Pokestop. I still prefer the Pokestop build, even though some people can test out the Noctowl engine if you want to, but I'm a bigger fan of just going turbo, Tracking Shoes, Pokestop, Squawkabilly, Radiant Greninja, finding the Sawdust, Sawdang, Steel Dance, you know how that goes, and then blow everything up with the Bellowing Thunder of the Raging Bolt. And as mentioned, because Briar is in here, if you have an Ogerpon with at least 1 energy, you can activate it through the means of Steel Dance, attach of turn Briar in the last couple of turns, because if you have the high amount of Pokegear in the list, and your deck will most likely only contain about like 12 cards in the mid to late game, you're going to be able to use Palpad, get the Briar back in the deck if it happened to be discarded, or if it's still in the deck, it's better that way. Just Pokegear, find the Briar, and then boom, off you go. You can still combo with that with a Pokemon Catcher or a Prime Catcher. It is very good indeed. Moving forward, we're going to be talking about, let's say, the new Terapagos Pidgeot. I personally believe, yeah, that is a tier A deck. I have tested it out, and people are gonna say, why is this in the tier A deck? Why is it a tier A deck? Well, let me just talk about this. If you start with Terapagos and you're able to get a couple of Duskulls out, you can pretty much beat anything. You can Dusknoir, and you can easily find the pieces of Dusknoir because of Noctowl. Noctowl can also sometimes find Featherball and Rare Candy. You can get the Pidgeot out. When you have the Pidgeot out, you can get another card through the means of Quick Search. With the Area 0 under that, you can go wide on your board. Fan Rotom can just get all the pieces you want in the early game. The only bad thing is, if this deck goes second, it is not that powerful. But for me, it's still powerful enough to be in that tier A spot, because if Terapagos goes first, definitely against like the tier S decks, you're gonna have a good time. Not only can Terapagos knock out easily the Teal Mask Ogerpons, you can Dusknoir twice in that game in combination with the Blood Moon Ursaluna and also win that game. So it also comes back with Briar. As we say, we're living in a Briar world where all the top decks are having the opportunity to cheat out an additional prize card if the opponent is at exactly 2 prize cards remaining, a very powerful supporter. In that hands, we're also going to be talking about Dragapult Pidgeot. I'm also going to be putting that in tier A. I tested this out before. I initially thought it was tier S, but when I played a little bit more with it, it sometimes has the clunky hands. And yeah, Dreepy Attach Pass and all that stuff. is not that powerful. Also, you should notice that lots of decks are playing Lost Vacuum, definitely the tier S decks, and if they vacuum away the Sparkling Crystal, you're also heavily reliant on Sparkling Crystal, by the way, it can sometimes become a little bit tricky, but on the other hand, you can snipe away all you want. Very similar to Regidrago VSTAR in that sense. The turn 2 attack with Dragapult is possible, but sometimes you do start with something that has retreat cost. Think about Radiant Alakazam, think about Rotom, and then getting that attack off becomes more difficult. So that's the only reason I put it down a tier lower, but Sparkling Crystal, Crispin can help out as well, but most of the time your second turn you're probably going to be using Arven or Iono regardless, so... But the deck is still strong. You can use Hawlucha if you want to. You can use Radiant Alakazam if you want to. Sometimes people play Radiant Charizard in the list as well. If you want to be respecting a little bit more of the Raging Bolt, I think that could make sense. It's a tier A deck for me and has all the tools that it can just to spread around these evolving basics. Unfortunately, the Raging Bolt matchup is a little bit tricky, so that's why I'm putting it down on tier A. Alright, moving forward, Gardevoir is returning to the scene here. I'm putting it in tier B. It is still back, but has a horrendous Charizard matchup. Yeah, when I say horrendous, it is actually really bad. Not only do they now have Dusknoir and Vacuum to cheat out additional prizes during one specific turn, they also come back with Briar. So Briar, Counter Catcher, they can take 3 prizes on the Guardian EX because you blew up a Dusknoir. So out of nowhere, you can take a lot of prize cards. Imagine you vacuum away a Bravery Charm on a Drifloon, boom, you take an additional prize card. Then you Dusknoir something, boom, you take an additional prize card. Then the opponent is at 2 prize cards, then you Counter Catcher the Gardevoir EX and just slap it with the Charizard, and boom, you take 4 prizes in a turn. That's why I think Guardy has a little bit, roughness ahead of it. Although it can, of course, go toe-to-toe with Raging Bolt, even though they come back with the Briar as well. You most likely will win because of something like an Unfair Stab. You also still come back with something like, for example, Klefki, which can shut down the Raging Bolt from actually going wide. So it is still a great deck, but for me, I'll be putting it in tier B. And also you should note is that we are in a format that can actually one-shot the Gardevoir EXs quite easily. Charizard hits for weakness, Raging Bolt can one-hit KO it. So, and there's even Dusknoir all around the top tier decks that can be a big problem for Gardevoir. I have tested this out, and when your Curlias go away through the Dusknoir and your Guardian EX is knocked out, I think it's gonna be pretty damn tricky to get into the game. So, with that being said, Regidrago is the next one. It's going to be going all the way into tier A. Tier A for me. Regidrago VSTAR is still around. You might think, do I play Temple? Am I respecting Lugia? Or am I going to be playing Jamming Tower, which can actually cut in the process? Dragapult, Charizard, as well as Gardevoir. So there are ways where Jamming Tower is better than the other. It all comes down to if you respect Lugia enough. We're going to be talking about Lugia in a minute. Regidrago VSTAR still has all the best Dragon-type Pokemon that it can use. You can copy-paste Giratina VSTAR. You can copy-paste the Dragapult EX as well. And there's even possibilities to get going a little bit more funky if you want. You can add in Haxorus if you want to slap some solid damage output. You can go, for example, a Hisuian Goodra could be doing this stuff, but more importantly, Kyurem. Kyurem is going to spread all you want, and the question becomes, will the top tier decks cut their mana fee? Because I've seen a lot of lists out there where Gardevoir, as well as Charizard, and even Dragapult for that regard, are actually cutting down their mana fee because they think Regidrago VSTAR will be dropping a tier because Raging Bolt is going all the way up. You see where this goes wrong, right? In the past, Regidrago VSTAR was the tier S deck, and it actually was able to beat like most of the decks, but now with Briar out there and Raging Bolt being very popular, I think Regidrago VSTAR has its work cut out for it. Also, talking about the deck that Regidrago VSTAR doesn't like to face, it's Lugia Archeops. I've been going nuts with Lugia Archeops ever since the World Championships, where I actually got 21st at the World Championships, and ever since I've been playing Lugia, I already got like over 100 CP. The deck is great. If you make it consistent, the deck can do a lot. You have access to the Iron Hands to take additional prize cards. You can go Chinchino to blow up on some stuff. It becomes a little bit more difficult for Lugia with the introduction of Briar, but it's still a very solid deck, and I'll be putting it in tier A as well. Maybe even like this, for example. So this is my current take on Lugia. You could go for weirder if you want. You can go a little bit more unique, like Rahul Reddy with the Raikou V inclusion, because As you see, there's a lot of Pidgeot EX around in the format, so as you see, that's going to be very helpful because Raikou can easily KO Pidgeot, whether it's in Control, Terapagos, Dragapult, or Charizard, you have that Lightning power. If you're playing Raikou, you might also think about one copy of Earthen Vessel and one copy of a Lightning Energy, but Lugia is still a powerful deck when you get the 2 Archeops on the discard, from the discard file all the way into the field because of Summoning Star. It seems like Lugia is the best deck around, so but be careful of the Briars and the Dusknoirs. Okay, moving forward, Miraidon, I'll be putting that in tier B as well. Miraidon is one of those decks that gained a little bit because of the 0 area under depth. When you play that stadium and you have a Terra Pokemon in play, which will be the Mewtwo EX, you can go all the way to 8 bench Pokemon. Very great because Miraidon has a ton of bench hitters around. Think about stuff like Mew EX, think about Squawkabilly, think about the Miraidon EX, Radiant Greninja, Lumineon, you name it. Your bench goes really wide. The cool thing is now that Raikou V can dish out more damage, and dishing out more damage is very crazy because you're going to be able to, of course, slap more damage with Raikou than ever before, meaning your electric generators need to hit a little bit less. And that's why I think Miraidon is still in the same position as it always is. If you hit your generators, it's a very strong deck. If you don't hit your generators, it's a very bad deck. So mid for me, but it could actually convert. And also Raging Bull being popular, I don't know how to feel about that. Are you going to be playing 2 copies of the Zapdos from Pokemon Go? You now have the bench space to do so. And on the other hand, Raikou can also still one-shot a Raging Bull because you can now go wider on your board, making it a little bit easier, I would say, to just one-shot a Raging Bolt going second. So there are good things to love about Miraidon, but it still has that horrendous Charizard matchup. And now with something like a Briar thrown up in the mix and Dusknoir, yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. Miraidon's still tier B for me. Let's talk about something from the tier C category, Iron Thorns. Ever since the World Championships, I've been wondering why Iron Thorns did so well. Iron Thorns initially has a great time up against Charizard and Raging Bolt, right? But yeah, definitely against Lugia. But I don't know if Lugia will be as popular as it was before. And the thing is, with Iron Thorns, it loses to Terapagos, it loses to Charizard, and sometimes Raging Bolt doesn't need its abilities. Sometimes they have Earthen Vessel and an Energy in hand, and the Sada to blow up on you. So I'm very curious to see if people will actually be piloting Iron Thorns at the Dortmund Regionals. Although you can shut down a lot of the up tier decks, you're actually losing to Dragapult and Terapagos most of the time, so that makes me concerned about playing something like an Iron Thorns. But it's matchup roulette time. If you want to be going for it, you can be playing Iron Thorns. But as mentioned, if the Zard comes out and you don't hit your Crushing Hammers, it can still become a very scary matchup. Moving forward, we're going to be talking about Chien-Pao. I'll be putting that in tier D. I'm sorry, folks. Chien-Pao believers out there, I have been a huge Chien-Pao fan in the Paldean Evolved format. I even got most of my invites for the Japan season with that. But with that being said, Chien-Pao, it is not the time to be playing Chien-Pao. Let me enlighten you. Dusknoir literally everywhere. Your little Frigibacks won't last a turn. On top of that, there's Kyurem in the Regidrago matchup. Lugia always had a great time because of Legacy Energy. Dragapult can spread, so every single deck out there beats Chien-Pao, and you already lose to yourself if you don't have your perfect setup. So Chien-Pao, tier D for me, and yeah. It is what it is. Next up, Palkia Dusknoir, another tier B deck, I would say. Palkia Dusknoir surprised me because when the set Stellar Crown came out, everyone hopped to the area 0 under depth, but with the Noctowl engine, but soon realized that playing Palkia with Dusknoir has its great advantages because now you can actually go for blowing up your Dusknoirs and then slapping with Palkia, sometimes even using Radiant Greninja. And that's why the thing where people are giving up on their Manaphy's, by the way, because Dusknoir blows them up in the first place, and then you're nothing with your Manaphy. But yeah, blowing up with Dusknoir, spreading damage with either the Water Moonlight Shuriken shenanigans of the Radiant Greninja, or attack with Palkia V. You have your late game Blood Moon or Soluna and a lot of Iono. So I think this deck is a surprise deck that might actually do well. Ancient Box, I'll be putting that in tier C together with the Iron Thorns deck. As mentioned, why is Ancient Box worse than it was before? Because everyone was hyping up the Ancient Box in the previous format, definitely in Baltimore. Leading up to Baltimore, people were hyped on Ancient Box. It's because of Briar. If Briar is in Charizard, is in Raging Bolt, sometimes in Dragapult, and most of the time in Terapagos, you're not going to have a great time because of the fact you're going to be taking additional prize cards in the mid to late game. And with the high amount of high HP Pokemon in the format, I think Engine Box will have it a little bit rough, so I'll put that in tier C, mainly because Briar just offsets the price trade, and it's already a deck that only slaps huge damage in the late game. And if you're getting into the late game, it's like, oh, I'm going from 3 to 1 or from 4 to 2 prizes, you're gonna be getting Briared. And Briared with a full HP Charizard, mind my words, you're not able to respond to that quite quickly. Like, imagine Briar into an unfair stamp and there's a huge Zard in your path and you cannot respond. Yeah, it's not gonna work like that. Okay, let's move on. We have Snorlax Stall. I'll put that in the tier B category. Snorlax Stall is one of those decks that if you're not respecting it, you're losing to it. So imagine, I would say Charizard's playing Turo. Yeah, Dragapult also playing Turo. Sometimes Charizard's also playing Torton, which can be very funky as well against Snorlax Stall. I think Snorlax Stall, it needs to be in a situation where you hit all the matches where people are not respecting Snorlax Block and you just run through the tournament easy peasy. You do have the Cornerstones, which can help against Zard. You do have the Mimikyus, which can help against Raging Bolt. So there's a lot of options out there for Snorlax Block, and definitely with all the disruptive supporters we currently have access to, it is a strong deck. But yeah, if you see Lugia, you probably lose. If you're up against a very fast Terapagos, you will probably lose. So if people have the additional Pal Pad to get the Turo back, you probably will lose. So it all comes down to your setup and how many switch outs the opponent has. And since most of the decks are playing Prime Catcher, they're going after your Rotom and doing some stuff, it can become pretty damn tricky. Pidgeot Control, I'll put that in the same category as well, because yeah, for me, Pidgeot Control and Snorlax Stall are in the same category. If people do not respect the way you can get trapped, with Pidgeot Control, it's probably going to be the Wellspring Ogerpon with Sup or Mawile with the Tempting Trap. Pidgeot Control has more options. The matchups the matchup spread is a little bit more widened because of Pidgeot. You can get into your deck whatever you feel like, whether you want to be going for a Noivern into the deck, or you want to be putting some interesting tech cards like the Bouffalant, which can put energies in the Lost Zone in the deck. It is all up to you. You can attack against whatever you feel like. Okay, moving forward, Lost Zone Box. Is it time for Lost Zone Box to return? I think not. I think I'll still put it in the tier C, maybe in the higher end of tier C, because of the fact that Dusknoir is around. Like, Lost Box doesn't like the addition of Dusknoir. Dusknoir, Iono, and then attack means that the deck has a lot of trouble for it. And on the other hand, I could see Lost Box doing well, but it will take a very skilled player to just run through the entire meta without seeing like Dusknoir, Iono into bricks, in my opinion. And then Turbo Roaring Moon, a very aggressive deck out there. I don't know if Briar helps out, but it's the same thing like a Raging Bolt Ogerpon, I would say. I think I'll put Gardevoir a little bit higher and then Turbo Roaring Moon like this, I suppose. Roaring Moon is just all in the middle for me. I think the deck really did well and shine at Worlds where the meta was perfect, where there was a ton of Regidrago which you can knock out, a ton of Lugia which you can knock out, but now those decks, the hype has lowered down a little bit. And also Terapagos has 230 HP, making you need to actually use Frenzied Gouging, which is not always the most interesting stuff. So I would put it in the tier B, but could still do well. So for me personally, if you are attending the Dortmund Regionals, I would be picking something from tier B and above. And hopefully you'll hit the correct matchups and you're going to have a great time. What is on the line? You're going to be able to get a Worlds invite if you get first place and 10 grand if you actually win. So good luck to everyone attending the Dortmund Regionals. I'll be there as well. Be sure to come and say hi. I don't bite, mark my words. I'm a friendly fella and we're going to have a good time. We're going to be playing and hopefully we'll be converting into day 2. It's going to be probably 8 rounds and you need to win 6 of them. So that's all the information for Dortmund Regionals. I wish you all the best of luck and I'll be back with the results very shortly and I'll be vlogging the event as usual. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your day and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Do I get tomorrow? No, tomorrow I'm leaving for Dortmund Regional, so it'll be probably Saturday where the vlog will be up, or Sunday depending on if I make day 1 or day 2. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your day. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.